Okay. Well, James, thank you for having me on today. My name is Kimball Clark. I am the owner of Kindex. We are based out of Kaysville, Utah. We started this software back in about 2015. We sort of hatched the idea. 2017 is when we launched. We were the recipient of the People's Choice Award years ago. And that gave us a little bit of money to be able to keep on working on our software and make it better. That was at Roots Tech, I believe in 2017. And I'm honored to present to you where we're at today. We have, somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 users in our software. We have people from all over the world using it. We have people from Family Search, people from universities. We have right now an attorney law firm using it for various needs. You can actually create an archive from just about any bit of material that you have. So don't think that it has to be exclusive to families. This can be nonprofit organizations can use this. They do use this. This can be individuals that are scientists studying insects for all we care. Okay. Any bit of records that you have that have any kind of information on them can be searched in Kindex. So let's talk about that. So those of you who are on the call today are likely what I refer to as history hoarders. If you don't like that I'm calling you a hoarder, then I'm just going to say that you're simply anyone with lots of records, okay? Let's just call it that. You might have these tangible records lying around inside of file cabinets or, in binders, or you're sloppy and you have boxes of paper like me, that I've had a lot of boxes of paper around my house for a long time. You might have a lot of VHS cassettes or CDs or zip disks or floppy disks, okay, sitting around. You have lots of records, okay? Now, if you've gone the extra mile and you said, you know what, I'm tired of having these tangible records, I want to turn them into digital files, you might be in that case, and you are now beginning on a track that is where you should go, which the next logical step is, once you've digitized these records, to put them online and make them accessible to others in your family or organization, or to the world if you so choose. Okay. So just to clarify, when you put a file into Kindex, we call that a record. So because a file lives now in an archive, it is therefore deemed a record in our system. So you might have a lot of records or files, and many of you may remember the card catalog world. I was born in the late 70s, and I was able to walk into the Farmington Library as a kid and see their giant card catalogs. They were always amazing to me. And of course, I got to learn how to use the card catalog in elementary school and grade school. And what was interesting is the internet was introduced to me in my era, and I came across things like Yahoo and Google, and we were introduced to the concept of the search field, okay? And it fundamentally changed the way that we search for material. Google in particular would crawl through websites and extract important relevant data and then serve it up to you to look at. And at some point, I kind of quit going to books when I had questions and almost exclusively began to use the internet when I had questions, which I find very interesting that so many people can agree with me that do that today. So it's not to say that every single book that exists is online. It's not, which I find very interesting that we pay so much credence to the search bar, okay, the search tool, when in fact there are many answers outside of the internet and beyond just reading as well. But at any rate, the search engine system and the search bar changed the way that we retrieve data. The idea of going to the back of a book, the index of a book, is kind of dated now. And so Kindex is helping us retrieve the data itself that we're looking for, not so much the metadata or data about the data like a card catalog would reveal to you. So card catalogs would typically help you search bibliographic data, which was later referred to as metadata, probably more so referred to that in the technological era. And it enabled us to find materials or media within the library itself, within the confines of that building wherein we were at. Okay. So Kindex is a little different. Um, you can search bibliographic data in Kindex, no problem. It's now referred to as we now refer to this as native metadata. We're trying to differentiate native metadata from the bibliographic data, meaning a file itself has native metadata ingrained within the file. And then, of course, we help users find the materials or media within an archive, not necessarily within a physical structure, meaning you don't have to be there in person. Okay, you can actually just go online and find that material. And then, of course, the really unique thing that Kindex does is we help users find words and images within the record itself. Okay, and that's unique. I mean, you don't do that with card catalogs. Card catalogs usually get you to that book or that particular media that you're looking at, and then you can find that word and image. Okay, so we're kind of changing that narrative. And whereas society started from the outside in, or you could argue the card catalog system, Kindex starts from the inside out. So you're actually getting the word in the page and you're populating that to the world and you're finding it by virtue of the word that's in that particular page instead of finding that book and then going to that page. So we're starting from the inside out, not the outside in, if that makes sense. Today's presentation that I'm doing with James, I'm sharing my screen here with you, and we're going to talk about the basics of Kindex and then the newer features that we created we released probably last year around fall of last year, and then what's cooking for fall of this year. We're really excited to launch these new features that are done. We're just trying to finish up some last finishing touches to make sure that you have a good, pleasant experience, and you're all going to be really excited to see these features. So let's talk about the basics of Kindex. We have a gather, index, and share. That's our typical approach to an archive. Now I'm going to jump into an archive and demonstrate that very quickly. This is an archive called the Ezra T. Clark family. The Ezra T. Clark family happens to be my family, my ancestors. In fact, I believe probably Ezra T. Clark's son-in-law's father was James's ancestor. So that's interesting. Something we just found out today, actually, when we were discussing this particular archive. So here we have, in this particular archive, what we call the gather screen. Over here on the left is our collections. Records that live in a Kindex archive live within collections or sub-collections. They don't live anywhere else. So a record lives within a collection or a sub-collection, and a collection or sub-collection lives within an archive itself, this being the archive. Okay? So that's important to understand. For example, we have a collection called the Farmington Museum Collection. So we literally went to the Farmington Museum and digitized every single bit of material that we could find from them that had to do with Ezra T. Clark and his family, he being one of the founders of Farmington City. Okay, so which of course wasn't a city back then; it was a tiny little town that didn't have even water when he got there. So, they did have water, but long story for another day. So anyway, what we have here are various sub-collections. Okay, and these sub-collections have various records within them. So this is a bound volume talking about Nathan Ford Clark. It's about 83 pages long, separate pages. So page by page, I can literally read through each page. Okay, I can also transcribe each page. So this is essentially where we gather records. We're not going to talk about transcribing and indexing just yet, but I want to feature a little bit more about this particular page, or the gather screen. If I want to add more records into this particular archive, I simply hit this add records button and I can upload files from my computer. I do not have to add them one by one. I can add multiple, we call it a batch upload, if you so choose. Those of you who are used to Family Search, I believe you do have to upload them one by one. James, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I think so. I think that's what I would think. I don't
Okay.
see any mechanism for doing multiple pages.
Okay. So this is a nice ability to do a batch upload. So you could have, 100 records selected and you could upload that material. Now, if you're wondering, can you upload folders? The answer is yes. You can't, we can. We limit the upload of folders for a reason. We don't want people overloading our servers, but you could certainly do that if you come talk with us. Again, we are based out of Kaysville. You can even talk with us remotely if you have a lot of material, and you can send it to us via Dropbox, and we can upload and populate this collection list automatically via your folder structure. We can teach you how to do that. That's a new feature we released last year. And you would otherwise hit add collection and create collections one by one and create them, and then make them subfolders if you want and add records within them. Now, another thing that you can do when you add records into your Kindex archive is you can share memories from Family Search. So we are I believe a solutions partner or something like that is what we're called, solutions provider or something. We do work with them, and you can extract your memories from a particular individual, and you just have to put in the Family Search ID and log in with Family Search, and you can port those over into your system. So it will come up as a folder saying Family History Records, and all those names, or sorry, all the memories will be there, not the sources, but the memories, to help you understand the difference between that. Family Search likes to say that sources are more so the government records and memories are more so the personal effects, personal records, such as letters, journals, photos, etc. So the memories can be brought into the system, okay? And once the memories are brought into the system, you can actually transcribe them with Kindex. A lot of users do that because you can't do that with Family Search yet, that I know of, okay? And they may do that at some point, but who knows when that's going to happen. Okay, so that's generally the gather screen. You can do a few other things here. You can delete records. You can look at the record information of a record. This is essentially the card catalog, okay? A little bit of the data about that particular record, or the metadata about that record. Not the native metadata, but just generally data about the data, okay? You can also sort your records. So if I want to look at strictly the images, I can do that. If I want to look at strictly the documents, I can do that, okay? So these are considered documents. If I want to look strictly at the audio files, I can do that. So we have some oral histories in this family organization, which are really, really interesting. Some going back into the 1950s. So that's how you can toggle or filter your records that way. Now, of course, we have the almighty search. You can search whatever you want in Kindex. So if I want to see what this family had to say about God, this is a 200 years of Clark's, if you will, and what they said about God, okay? And you'll obviously notice that they said a lot about God. Let's see what they said about ice cream. Now, me being a descendant of this family, and going to a lot of reunions, obviously we always have ice cream. What is it about the Clark's and ice cream? There's something, okay? Clearly there's something about ice cream. And so it's important for me to show you such a silly word, because what I'm trying to stress is that you can literally get to know your ancestors or your documents or your material by virtue of the most obscure words when you use Kindex. You can't do that with a card catalog. You can't do that with Family Search even. You have to actually look at that record and get to that particular cursive word that says ice cream and find it. With Kindex, we want to get to the word. So again, the inside out approach, okay? So that's how the search would work. Let's talk now a little bit about the indexing or the transcription element. If I want to transcribe a record, or maybe even in this case, describe a record, I could certainly do that. I could say, this is a photo, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and I could explain what's going on. It looks like they're harvesting hay, dry farming, or something like that, okay? I could say dry farming. And I could say save, and I could look up dry farming, and immediately I'll have a hit to that particular description of that photograph. Now, the same would happen with a written record. So let's jump to all records. I'm going to say documents, and let's find a handwritten record. And Kindex right now, you just simply go on forever by hitting show more records. Here we have a little postcard of sorts, written in 1947. Has that little address here, which could be mentioned as a place. We've got a date here as well, which is an entity that our system can automatically extract. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We've got a name here, Heber. Received your letter yesterday. Okay, and so this is our index screen or our transcription screen, where we basically take what's here and we put it over here to the right. Many of you are probably wondering, when are you going to do handwriting recognition? That's what we're going to feature today in this video. So please stay tuned. We'll show how that works. Very, very cool. We're excited to show that to you. So for now, Kindex, you have to manually do it, but come in this month, you'll see a release where we will have handwriting recognition and a few other really sweet services. So I'm going to go ahead and say that it's still in progress. It's not complete just yet. It's in progress. I'm going to hit save, and I could simply go on to the next record that needs work to be done, and the next, and the next. Okay, so that's typically how it works when you transcribe. We have a lot of nice little tools here that are very helpful for you when you transcribe. We have some unique tools that you've never seen before, such as an inline note or a marginal note or a page break. Okay, if you want to say, hey, this document had 2 pages, you can hit a page break and it'll say page 2 and page 3 and page 4 and so on and so forth. And that would be particularly in the case of PDF files. All right, let's jump into all records again, and let's look at the share element, which we also call the read screen. This is a record that's been typed and is already transcribed, okay? And this is what the read screen looks like, okay? So this is the original document, and here's the language that we've extracted from that original. Now, what's nice about this text is it's no longer stuck in this original document, but it's actually liftable or dynamic or changeable, searchable, etc. for the web once it's transcribed. So understand that's the key part of Kindex, where you want that text to be living outside of the record instead of stuck within that raster file. Okay, so for example, here's a benefit, just a quick, simple benefit. If I have bad vision, I can simply increase the fonts. Okay, I can change the font. I can do all kinds of things. Okay, you can't change the font in Kindex just yet, but you could copy and paste and change the font if you want. Okay, so there's a lot of dynamic capabilities of having text lifted from the original record. Okay, let's suppose you wanted to just simply download the original. You can do that on the read screen or the share screen. Let's suppose you really like this particular record and you want to share it with your family. You can hit copy link and you can put it in Facebook or Twitter, and you can advertise essentially this particular record from this archive. Let's suppose that you are a person that doesn't like to read on the computer screen and you like to print stuff out. Well, I can hit Kindex text as PDF, and I can generate this document as a PDF. I can print this PDF out to my black and white ink printer, so I don't have to use precious colored ink to print the original. And I have a QR code that takes me to the original. If I hover my phone over it and touch that QR code, I can see that original. So this is, again, the derivative transcription of what the original was. A lot of our customers actually will generate PDFs upon the completion of a transcription, hole punch them, and put them in a binder that expands. We call that the primary source archive, okay? So you can choose to do that. You'll see a lot of future work with PDFs in Kindex in the coming months or years. Okay, so we also have some little statistics here. So this reveals to me that I have contributed this many records to Kindex overall, and these are the folks who helped me transcribe this particular record in one way or another. But this is their total contributions to Kindex as well. Okay, so those are some gamification elements that we've added to Kindex to help you understand how this came about, the derivative transcription came about. So let me jump into some more basics here before I jump into some of these newer features. Those of you who are thinking, this is crazy to have me transcribe every bit of file or records that I have, that's just way too much work. We know that it's a lot of work. We're fully aware of that. And so here's an example of my own family's archive. if I wanted to invite people into my family's archive to help me, because I can't do it all alone, you have the almighty collaborate button. Okay. So you simply, when you create an archive, you have this little cog up here in the top right that gives you some administrator controls. Okay. If I hit collaborate, I can see all the people that I've invited into my archive. Those that have accepted turn green. Those that haven't are gray. Okay. So at any time, if I don't like a particular person in my archive for whatever reason, I can hit this trash can and they are banned from my archive. Okay, they no longer have access to it. Now, the archive that I showed you before, the Ezra T. Clark archive, was actually a public-facing archive. This archive is a private archive, and only if you have a private archive, only those that you collaborate with or you invite can see the material. A public archive, on the other hand, that has James' ancestors mentioned, as well as my own, anybody can look at that data. Anybody can even help transcribe that data. So it's kind of a wiki type base for the public archive. If you don't like that wiki world and you want to restrict and choose who is in your archive, you can simply pick a private archive. Okay, so the collaborate option is really, really important. Okay. Another question that we get all the time when we, particularly at Roots Tech, people say, well, what happens when, your sea-level folks go down in a ball of flame if you're flying, in an airplane crash or whatever, or something happens to your business, right? Okay, well, that's a good argument. I know there are some really serious and fair concerns there. So this is why we give you the ability to download your entire archive as a zip, meaning all your records that you've uploaded into Kindex as a zip file, and all the data as an Excel spreadsheet. So that means your transcriptions, that means your record information, or essentially your card catalog, all your extra peripheral data that you added that pertains to each record can be downloaded by virtue of these two documents. And please download both of those documents. So at any given time, as you're a paying subscriber, you can download this data. And so we're not hijacking it from you or taking it from you. You have it. Just know that the moment that you download that material, it's not to say that we cancel your account or anything like that. You can go ahead and do this, 50 million times. It doesn't matter to us. But what you're doing is if you do cancel your account and you have this material, you're no longer accessing this nice interface to be able to peruse your data. Okay, you're going to be left with an Excel spreadsheet and a bunch of JPEGs, PDFs, PNGs, etc. Okay, which is helpful, but not as nice as this interface is. So, all right, let's jump into the newer features. Let me jump back to the Ezra T. Clark archive. And you'll notice here that I'm bouncing between archives. And this is what's marvelous about Kindex is you can have more than one archive if you want. You can be a paying subscriber for an archive for your mom's side of the family, your dad's side of the family, or because you study grasshoppers, you can have a grasshopper archive. Whatever. So you can toggle between multiple archives, and multiple people can invite you to their archives, and you can bounce between them. So I'm going to jump now to the Ezra T. Clark archive, away from my own family's archive. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the archive homepage, which is a newer feature that we released late last year. So the archive homepage is like a book cover for your archive. Okay. Before we didn't have this, we just had the archive itself. Now we have a way to advertise to search engines what is in your archive. This is very important. And those of you who understand search engine optimization or SEO need to pay attention to this because we have what are called named entity extraction. So we'll talk about this here in a moment. James, did you have a question?
No, I
Okay.
think this is going great.
Okay, great. So let me just talk about the general layout of the archive homepage before we begin. You have the ability to upload your own logo, to give your own description of this archive, to hide and show entities that are automatically extracted from your data. You have the ability to encourage people to request access if they want, to get access and help you transcribe. Now, public archives, if you recall, if you simply have a Kindex username and password, you can go ahead and you can help any public archive. But if it's private, you're going to get this dialogue quite a bit saying you've got to ask permission from the archive owner before you gain entry. Okay. So let's give you a quick example of that. I want to show you a private one. This is the Mormon Battalion Association, and I think right now they're working on getting it perfected before they allow the public in. So if I click on this, you'll see that it's private and I can't get in. I can't even search this archive and see what they said about ice cream. Oh, actually, I can because I'm actually a user. Let me log out here so you can kind of see how that works. Okay, now I'm logged out. Now I say login. Okay. And you'll see that I can't log in here. And if I try to search ice cream, I can't engage whatsoever. Okay, I'm stuck. I'm barred, I'm banned, if you will, from this archive until I get permission from the archive owner or the individual who's responsible for paying for this archive or subscribing to the service will get an email with a person begging them to have entry. Okay. And you get to choose. Do I want to let this person in or not? Okay. Now let me jump back in to my own system. And again, this is my family's archive homepage. I haven't changed the logo just yet. Let's talk a little bit more about what this is featuring. So I can choose as an archive owner which records I want to feature to my fellow collaborators. Okay. So this is where I'd have my collaborators go. They would simply go to whatever their subdomain is. So in this case, it's clark.kindex.org. And by the way, that's something that you do create when you create an archive. You pick your own subdomain and they can go ahead and pick which one of these they want to describe or transcribe. Okay. If I want them to focus on another collection, I can just simply tell them which collection to go to. And those thumbnails will show up here. Now, the statistics are very important with every archive. It tells you the progress. Where are you at? So we've got 759 in my family's archive right now, 215 of which have been indexed or transcribed. Here's the breakdown of that material. This shows how many collaborators have been granted access. And then a little gamification element, we call this the leaderboard of who's first, second, and third. Okay. This area is the featured record. The moment you feature a record in your archive homepage, it becomes public to the whole world. Okay. So be aware of that. And you can, of course, click on that and read that record in Kindex. So whether you're a private archive or a public archive, if you feature a record, it's out there for the world to see. But it's usually trying to just whet the appetite of those who are interested in this particular archive. Then we have these little blog posts off to the right that if you want people to abide by certain standards when they're transcribing, they can follow these instructions. If you want to talk about a reunion that's coming up or really anything and everything that you want, you can even put hyperlinks in it. Go ahead and do that. Okay, that's what this blog post area is for. And then, of course, we have just other organizations that are public-facing archives or private that are trying to encourage people to help them down here at the bottom. So that's basically the archive homepage. Now, the entities are really, really important. So when it comes to SEO purposes, if I want to jump back into the Ezra T. Clark archive and look at all the persons that are mentioned in this particular archive, I can simply look at an A through Z listing of all persons that have been extracted automatically by virtue of using AI and placed in this named A through Z listing. Okay. So James actually told me that he had his ancestor written here. And James, you're going to have to remind me that it was John M.
John.
Right? John. So this is James's ancestor. And this being a public archive, he could go here too and click and look at all the mentions of John M. Tanner and the
Not John.
context.
John M was grandchild of John.
Oh, okay. But not the one that you're from?
No, I'm from John Tanner, the main
The
guy.
the main guy. Okay, I see. So let's look at that John Tanner. And it's possible that that could be the one that they're referring to.
Yeah,
That's the book.
that's the book.
Got it. Okay. So what you're seeing here is a great example of how records can connect people. I am now connected to James by virtue of records that my ancestors have and that he also has. Okay. So don't view DNA as the only connecting element between others in the world. Actually, the records that are sitting under your mattress, in your closet, wherever, in the attic, actually can leverage records that the exact same records that other people have, or the names, places, dates, events, and subjects that are in those records can leverage that exact same material that they also have. So let's jump into the places listings. We've got all the A through Z places listings, all the A through Z date listings, okay, event listings, and subjects. Let me talk a little bit about subjects. Subjects is a very clever tool. If I jump into this archive and let's say I want to go to record information on this particular one, let's jump in so we can see what it looks like. So here we have someone, it looks like, that's definitely Farmington because I know those mountains really well. So almost too well, but I won't get into that story. So if I click on record info and I can say the subject keyword is going to be farming, okay, and update that record. Well, we don't have a title, so I got to put in, we'll say farming woman. I could go ahead and update that record, okay? And that keyword of farming would eventually show up on the home page as a subject under F. It's not going to be immediate, but it'll show up there within probably a minute, okay? And so that's how you can actually customize your own tags of your own choosing, or your own entities of your own choosing. And thus, if you want to apply the tag of farming to every farming record that you have, you could click that F, go to farming, and voila, you'd see all those records that have to do with farming. So that's what subjects is. It's a custom approach. Now, I want to show you some of the tools to manage this archive homepage. This is very powerful. If you want to change your coloring, you can do that. If you want to hide the Kindex logo on the homepage, you can do that. If you want to upload your own logo, change your own background image, you can do that. Feature different records, feature different collections, change your posts. This is the area that I want to get to. If you're a private person and you have a private archive and you say, you know what, I don't want the world to see diddly squat of my data, okay? Just the people that I want. You can turn everything off and you can refresh and you'll see that those entities go away, okay? No longer can the world see your entities. Now, if you're like me, I want the world to see my journal, but not in context of what I've said. So for example, if I wrote about, say, a missionary companion that I had, that I said some negative things about them, I don't want to let the world see what I said about them, but I do want the world to know that I mentioned them in my journal. So that's a clever way to say, yes, turn on persons. Yes, turn on places, but don't turn on the rest. Okay. And I'll let the world get just a little bit of a taste as to what's in my journal, but not in context, unless they ask for my permission. Okay. So that's a really clever way to make a journal public without making it too public. Okay. So we really, really are proud of that particular entity recognition feature. Okay, so we've talked about the archive homepage and the entity recognition. Those are newer features, again, that we pushed last year. Let's talk about what's cooking. So this is really exciting. James, I think you may have seen a little bit of this in the
Yeah,
past.
I recognize that.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the metadata search first. Now, I'm going to jump into my development server, so you're going to have to forgive for some of this not being totally up to par yet, but I think you'll get the general idea of what's going on. Let's see. Yeah, here we are. We're in our development server. Okay. So we're going to talk first about the metadata search. Okay, so if I want to look at this particular record, okay, let's take a look at it. And I want to look at its metadata. Let's take a look at it in this screen here. Meaning the native metadata, not the card catalog information, but the native metadata or bibliographic information. So we would argue this is your typical information you might see in Family Search or bibliographic information about a record. But now I can actually look at the metadata of this original record. Now, what's really cool about this feature is that many of you may actually access the property details of your files on your Windows computer or on your Mac. You get info, okay? and you change the text how you want it, or you describe what's going on in the picture, well, congratulations. Now Kindex preserves that metadata when you upload that material and allows you to search it. It doesn't allow you to search everything, as you can see, but some of the more important elements like date, title, description, etc., you can search. Okay. So we have the description. Someone had written this as the description. Okay. And you can now search that. So let's give you an example. I'm going to search the word Frank. Okay. And you'll see that we have Frank show up here in metadata. There's one hit, but no hits in properties or transcription. Okay. So if I want to look at that word Frank and see what's popping up in the metadata, we've got Frank right there, Frank Thompson written in the metadata. So this was actually a case where someone went into their Windows XP and they changed the property details of the title, and they put Frank Thompson in the title, and it's therefore preserved, even though it hasn't been transcribed in Kindex. So we actually had a user come to us and say, why would I want to use Kindex if I've already done everything that Kindex already does in the property details, and I can search it already in my system? Well, now you can upload it to Kindex and you can share it with your family instead of it being stuck exclusively on your computer, that potentially when you pass away, that computer will be thrown away, right? Now it's shared with the world, even that property detail text that you had in the metadata. So that's a new feature, the metadata search, and also the ability to kind of itemize how your results are found in the search results screen. And of course, that adds them all together. So we have 4 plus 0 plus 0 equals 4 results. Okay. All right. So that is the metadata search. Let's talk about the auto index, which is my favorite. So those of you who've been staying on all this time, you're going to get rewarded. This is the fun part. Let's talk a little bit about some of these upgrades to Kindex first. We're trying to give you the ability to filter your records according to what's been completed, what's in progress, and what's presently incomplete. We ultimately want you to get to complete, okay? Because once it's completed, now you can search all the words within your records. But this little bot icon represents something entirely new, which is the ability to auto-index your records, okay? And what this does is the system will actually extract the text and put it off to the right in your transcription screen. So let's do that. And this is one that we did yesterday. Okay. Here's the handwriting. We auto-indexed it, and this is what it gave us. Okay. It's pretty darn accurate. Now, it does depend entirely on the original nature of the record. In fact, this one I think didn't say Tana. I think it said Tom or something, because it was really hard for the system to read it. So here's a rule to live by. If you have a hard time reading it, it's likely the computer will as well. Okay. So don't expect perfection when we use the automatic indexing service, and just know that it's going to do its very best, and then you would have to go in and refine it. So of course we refined it and we said save. And I could keep on looking at this a little bit further and find little errors and fix those. And once I do, I can say complete and move on to the next. Okay. Now I'm going to jump back to that particular place where I was. And let's do an actual indexing right now. So if I click on this record that I want to index or transcribe, it's going to say to me, in order for you to do this, it's going to cost you about $5 to do just one record. Now that's way too expensive. A lot of people don't want to pay $5 for just one page. But the best value is when your pages exceed 20. So we can't charge you, we don't want to nickel and dime you. You're going to have a minimum. So we recommend strongly that you select 20 records or more, and then you say auto index, and it'll give you a quote automatically. So let's do a quick example of this. Let's say I want to auto transcribe all of these records in this collection. 327 records. I hit this button. It's going to give me a quote and say, okay, this contains 287 pages and 0 minutes of audio. Auto index for $71.75. Okay, so we do have a charge per page and per minute. You will simply have to click on the record and see how much it will charge according to what you have given it. Okay, the least, the minimum amount that we recommend is 20 pages. If you want to just do 1 or 2 pages for $5, you can certainly do that. But go ahead and pick up to 20. Let's say you pick 21 pages. It's going to be about $5.25. Okay. So just understand that the minimum threshold is going to cost you $5. So try to give yourself 20 pages at least of records when you auto index. Okay. And so some things to be aware. The system can actually extract text from typed records, which is called OCR. Okay. It can extract text from handwritten records, which is called HWR. It can do speech to text, where it extracts text from spoken language. And it can generate descriptive text from images, one of my favorite things. Okay. Let's do that on this particular record here of this little family to be instantly recognized by our machine. Okay. Now, while that's working, it's going to probably be done in about a minute. I'm going to jump into this one and I'm going to generate a transcription of handwritten material here. Okay. If I hit refresh, you'll see that that's spinning because it's working on that particular record. Let me jump back to the other record that I had open. And that was this one. This looks like it's done. So this little bot means, hey, the machine recognized it. You haven't touched it yet. It's not in progress necessarily until you start to work on it. Okay. And voila, we've got a nice little description. Features 8 children of various ages standing in 2 rows on a grassy area in front of a house. The house has a white exterior, a large window visible in the background. The children are dressed in casual clothing, typical of the mid-20th century styles, including dresses, shirts, and trousers. The expressions and poses of the children vary, with some smiling and others looking more serious. Now, let's see how right this is. It said 8 children of various ages. How many do we got there, James? We have 8? Looks like it. Okay. It isn't always accurate. Sometimes it'll say 9, sometimes it'll say 7. So don't assume that the description is 100% accurate, because sometimes you'll find that it's not. Sometimes it'll make you chuckle a little bit about what it saw. Okay. So that requires you to go in and to make the changes. Now, if I happen to know who these 8 children are, I could go ahead and I can name who they are. Okay. I could put in those names. I could also specify whose house that might be if I happen to know whose it is. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a general description of what's going on, thus creating the foundation for you to expand on in detail. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say save, pretending that's being worked on. Let's jump back to that other example of that image that we're describing. Or, sorry, we already did the image that we're describing. Excuse me, the handwriting that we were transcribing. Okay. So this is what was written. It's not the greatest resolution. Okay. It's actually kind of low resolution. And this is the text that it's extracting. Okay. Now, whether or not that text is accurate, you're going to have to look through and take a look at it. Okay. But it handles this page by page. Okay. And you'll see it's already putting in the page breaks for you. It's literally doing what it understands here to the right, which you, of course, would have to fix wherever is necessary. And it's not going to be perfect. Again, handwriting depends entirely on the original file. So do your very best when you scan records. Do your very best when you rotate records. Make sure that you don't have vertical text. That's something that it struggles with. It can even recognize tables incredibly well. I'll tell you right now, that will be a struggle for the system to be able to handle that. Okay. This might be a bit of an annoyance for the system to be able to read. So the clearer your records are, the better of a result you'll receive. Our best service of all the services that we do when we do our auto indexing is the STT, or the speech to text. Okay, it's magnificent. I'm so impressed at how accurate it is. And again, that depends on the original file as well and how clear the audio is. So let's jump into some audio files here. And let's see. Okay, so here's actually a recording we did of Kindex. We had a radio spot. This is an audio file that's been automatically transcribed. And as you can see, it's breaking it down into 20-second increments. So we got 20 seconds, 40 seconds, and you can hide and show that timestamp as you see fit. Okay. And that's one of our favorite auto indexing services that we provide to you. Now, if you happen to have all of your records and you want to get a quote for everything, you simply hit auto index and it will literally give you a quote for to auto index all of your material for you, thus allowing you to simply correct what's been transcribed, what the machine understood, instead of having to start from scratch. So that's a very powerful solution for you. You can literally upload hundreds of megabytes of files, click this auto index, have it extract that text, pay that fee, and then keyword search whatever you want. So that's Kindex in a nutshell. We've got a lot more stuff coming, but that's what you're going to see probably this month when we release that feature of auto index. James, do you have any further questions for me today?
Yeah, it looks really great.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
And if,
Um, Very, very interesting.
yeah, and if any of you would like to reach out to us, that's our contact information on the screen, if you can still see it. Feel free to call me. My name is Kimball, and I am doing trainings every Tuesday. Tuesday are my trainings. Those of you who are customers or not can absolutely come in and participate in trainings, and we can demonstrate how the software works for you and your family. And thank you so much for your time, James.
Okay, thank you.